Alright, so next thing we're going to do is modify the bar top and then maybe put a base below it, and maybe we'll put some casework in the back. So maybe we looked at this and we decided, well, that's really awkward the way that comes out, and maybe I want this to be straight and do this. So one thing that's nice about Revit is you can pick this object, and it does give you some pull options. You can see those where you can sort of stretch this out if you wanted to, but you can also go back to the edit in place, which takes you back to the original option in sketch mode, and you can then pick the extrusion and edit the extrusion, and you get the extrusion itself. So let's say that I wanted this to be a straight line here instead of that perpendicular line. So I could do that, go to the trim command, trim that out, delete that line, and let's say I wanted this one to actually pull to the end point there and be a clean finish, and then I could delete that line and trim that out and hit check, and you'll see that it will then appear right in that form. So you still have access to the parts of the model that you can use, right? So the next thing I want to do is I want to create sort of a base underneath that. So I can do that in multiple ways. I could actually create a wall that goes below that if that's what's supporting it. Or maybe there's a lower bar back in here, right? A lower area for the bar that actually kind of goes straight across here, so that's where they're making their drinks and stuff. So let's go ahead and make that. So if I come in and I go to my Create tab, still in the family, right, where this bar top extrusion is, I can make another extrusion, and I can use my pick line. So there's a pick line here in the draw to sort of come over here in my floor plan, and I can just pick that line. I can also lock it to that extrude line, but I'm not going to do that. And then I'm just going to go to my line command, and maybe my bar back, is this area where they have the possibility of creating the drinks, right? And this is going to be lower here. It's going to be a little bit lower. And so my extrusion start will be, let's say if it's 6 inches lower. So if it ends at 2'6", and this guy starts right at 2'4", and I hit the big green check, right, I now have that guy in 3D sitting right below there. So I can also pick this and put a material parameter on it like I did the other one. And if I make a new one and give it a different name and call it back bar top and make it an instance and click OK, I now have an option once I get into the project. If I finish the model again, I can pick this guy, and I have two options for materials, the bar top and the bar back top. So if I come in here, I can set two different materials. Maybe this one's just an aluminum for right now, right? And I click OK. And so I'm basically creating a small little command where I can start to work on these pieces. Now, another thing that you can do is you could come in and you will probably need to have some sort of support for these, right? They're coming in and they're just floating on top of everything. So there's a couple of ways to address that. It depends on how you want to do it. You can do it definitely with a component model in place, and then follow it up with maybe walls or something like that when you get a little bit more detailed later. So let's do that. So I'll come in, and underneath this guy I'll make a sort of wall or support area that this guy will be sitting on, right? So to do that, if you make sure you check your way all the way out of your conceptual model in place, and just go to architecture and the wall architectural, and if you go to the pull down, you'll have some generic walls. So I would recommend using those first. So I'm just going to use a generic 6-inch wall. And that wall is going to be sitting kind of right in here, right? And the location line is going to be the finished face interior. So that's kind of the inside of the wall, and I'll consider that the outside of the wall. If we want this wall to run all the way along this edge, I can again use the pick line command, and you can see how it's going to set that wall. So I want it to set it over here. And once I pick that, I hit escape a couple of times, you can see that wall is kind of shooting up in the middle of that. So what I want to do is I actually want this guy to be what, 2'10" tall, right? Because it's going to go through. If we take a look at our section here, I'll just double click on our section, right? And it's very, very tall, but that's all right. Here's our section. We want that wall to sort of sit underneath this bar top right here. So there's a couple of ways to do that. You can actually pick the wall, which is super tall. It's going up to plan level A4. I actually want it to be unconnected because I don't want it to go up to a level. And you can just pick it and actually pull it down to where you want it. So there's like these little pull handles on everything. If I do that, you can see it in the 3D view adjusting itself, right? So you can see that guy below. Now, you can see that it set it at 2'9" at the bottom of the bar. I could have also manually set that. The other thing we could do is, let's say we wanted a little piece coming out of the bottom where people could put their foot or something like that. You can then model that as a very short wall, which is a possibility, or you could do it as a model in place. So if I go back to my plan A1 bar, if I wanted a little footrest down here, right, I could come in and go to component, or actually let's just do it inside the existing one. I'll edit in place, and then I'll come in and do another extrusion, use a pick line, and I'll pick this guy, and then I'll offset it, I don't know, 4 inches. Again, these are studies for your dimensions, and I'm just making, right, the exact same thing that we did before, a closed, we'll just do that, and then I'm going to use TR for trim here to trim that out instead of going up to the, and then we have this guy. So the wall is kind of sticking out. That's another issue with the wall, is like depending on how you want that guy to work, you can kind of think about that. But I'll just go ahead and maybe finish this guy off and trim. We don't really need to trim it. And then if I hit check, right, it's making it very tall. I really want the extrusion start to be at 0 and the top of it to be at, 6 inches. Right, so now you can see that guy setting itself down there. Again, we can set a material parameter on it. And we can say bar footrest. Right, oops. If I click OK there and finish the model, we're back out in the project. If I pick this guy, I'm not getting the footrest one because I forgot to do something. It's actually a type parameter, so let me edit that. I'm going to edit in place. I'm going to pick this guy, or actually I'm going to open up my family types dialog box, which shows me all the parameters, my material parameters that I've set. And the bar footrest, I forgot to make it an instance parameter, so I'll change that. Click OK, and then finish. And then if I pick this, I'll get the footrest as an option in the and maybe we'll just make that aluminum as well. Click OK. All right. So the last thing I'll do is just edit in place, and I'll edit this again because I want it to sort of go out that way. So I'll just pick this line here, trim it, trim that off, and then delete. And then all of these are at sort of 0 tolerances. You would probably have them overlapping a little bit. So one thing you could do is you could also offset, and let's say you wanted a 2-inch overlap on some of these. So, and you can remove the copy, and if you do that, it'll actually push that guy out, right, and adjust the size. So you get kind of an overlap on that wall. And then if I hit check and finish the model, again, I'm getting this sort of bar situation here very quickly. Okay.